Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. It's been a while since I've spoken to you all. I've got a little, what would I call him? What do you want to be called? An executive producer here beside me that you might hear mumbling and grumbling, gurgling and hiccuping here beside me. But he assured me that he was going to take a little time out for a moment while I could do this podcast. But first of all, before I start, I want to say thanks an absolute thousand to everybody who congratulated us on the birth of our new son, the wonderful Dara, and he is a bundle of joy, and we're absolutely thrilled to have him. And he's been no bother whatsoever. But the podcasting world doesn't stop, and the great news for Aston Villa doesn't stop. There's been quite a lot of it, and I want to get Paddy on. I want to get somebody on so that I can bounce a couple of perspectives off them with regards to things like Chris Heck, being joining the setup, something that I've got some thoughts on. A lot of people have spoken about his ability to raise capital and to improve the overall value of a brand, which is really, really impressive as well. I've got a couple of other thoughts on that, and I'd like to talk about that at a later date. And look, we've just been linked with player after player after player after player recently, from Dusan Vlahovic to Ferran Torres to the guy that we're going to talk about today, with his which is going to be Marcus Asensio, and somebody that I think is an intriguing prospect. Well, I was going to call him a prospect, an intriguing prospective transfer for Aston Villa, and somebody that even 6 months ago or 12 months ago, even when Unai Emery first came in, there would be I would not have thought that we would have been able to be in the conversation for Marcus Asensio. So we're gonna take a look at it. And look, this is something I love. I feel, just before we get into Marcus Asensio, I see that Aston Villa armchair fan has said that the players we're linked with is amazing. It's the Emery effect, and long may it continue. Also, congratulations on the birth of your new son. Thank you so much. But the Emery effect is real, I think, and as is the project that Aston Villa are building, because we're getting some real heavy hitters from industry in there. When I say industry, I mean the sports industry, in to run the senior management of this club and to run it with the guys that are there already. So what we're doing is we're growing the oversight of the club, which is fantastic and needs to be done, and needs to be done if we are going to strategize and specifically get out into a global sphere from a marketing point of view, etc. But getting back to Marcus Asensio, I just want to talk about him briefly. This won't be an exceptionally long podcast. I know I normally say that, and then 35 minutes later I'm saying thank you for watching, but this will be maybe around 15 minutes long. But Marcus Asensio, look, absolutely hit the ground running in about 2018-19. Looked like he was going to be the next Spanish star, playing on the wing for Real Madrid, playing on the wing initially for Mallorca. He caught the eye, and then was transferred to Real Madrid, and just started to sparkle straight away. Looked like he was made for the big occasion, made for the big day, playing out on the wing, or as that kind of that attacking midfielder, wide midfielder in a three. He looked sparkling. He was absolutely fantastic. But I think it would be remiss for us not to talk about Asensio and how he's changed, I suppose, physiologically, I suppose, since he had his ACL tear 3 years ago now. I think it was. He did tear his ACL, and what we've seen is a kind of a change in him. That, along with the fact that Zidane, even though he was playing quite a bit for Real Madrid, he wasn't Zidane's first choice. A lot of his good starts came off the bench, and then Zidane obviously left, and Ancelotti came in. And working for Ancelotti is a tough job. You hear an awful lot of people talk about Ancelotti, and for my money, I think he has to be considered as probably the best football coach of all time. He's in the conversation. Maybe he's not the best, but he's in the conversation. I think if you were to say Mount Rushmore of best football coaches of all time, he'd probably be in the conversation to be carved in Mount Rushmore of that, maybe alongside Alex Ferguson and whoever else you want to talk about. I don't know. A lot of people might mention Pep with regards to that, and I think that's a fair conversation. But Carlo Ancelotti he's as good as you're going to get. He's as good as you're going to get from a footballing point of view. And look, when Unai Emery wins the league 4 years in a row with Aston Villa and takes us to our first Champions League, he will be on Mount Rushmore as well. But the reason I bring up Carlo Ancelotti and his coaching style is he's very demanding, like the guy that we have. But he's his style, specifically with Real Madrid, has asked an awful lot of his wingers. You look at Rodrigo, who's there, fantastic player in his own right, Vinicius Jr., those guys, and more so, I suppose, really why the likes of Gareth Bale and the likes of Eden Hazard haven't worked at Real Madrid, specifically under Carlo Ancelotti. They just haven't worked. Is they weren't there to give the effort. They were there to give the effort in the final third. They weren't there to give the effort in transition. They weren't there to give the effort in, winning one-on-one duels out there, and having that explosion to be able to burst forward. And I know that sounds a bit stupid talking about Gareth Bale because he's still probably, could outrun 90% of the Premier League, even though he's been retired for the last 6 months. Well, arguably people would say he's been retired for the last 2.5 years, but he had explosion, but it was the application that Ancelotti needed from a winger, massive application. And why am I talking about this is because, and why am I starting, I suppose, really with context and what could be perceived as a negative, but it isn't. And hopefully I'll try and tie it all together in a moment with regards to why I'm talking about this. But Ancelotti does require that from his team. He requires his wingers to be out and out sparkles of positivity, but he requires them to be able to take the ball from deep. They have to be able to take it from deep. They have to be able to win it from deep. We see when they played Manchester City, albeit in that 1-1 draw, he had Camavinga playing it as left back. He had Carvalho playing at right back. They stuck to their guns and their defensive capabilities, and they tackled hard. The winger's job was to come back and take that ball deep and make something happen going forward. And it did. And Vinicius Jr., we see, got the goal. It was a fantastic goal. And then make something for Benzema if you get up. So they have to be super industrious. Now, going back to what I mentioned about Marcus Asensio's cruciate ligament tear, he did lose that latent pace he had with his ACL tear, and that's and I'm talking about it from a context point of view as opposed to a negative. And how I'm going to tie this together is because what Ancelotti did last year specifically for Asensio is he stopped persevering with him playing on the wing, and this is the year that he was kind of really coming back from his ACL tear. Stop persevering with playing him on the wing and tried to play him as kind of a more of an inside midfielder. They had a lot of injuries at the time. Casemiro was injured. Modric was injured. There was quite a lot of injuries they had in there. Obviously, they had Camavinga, Tucheme, who were very inexperienced and young, and he needed somebody in there. And Asensio started to play more in infield a small bit for Real Madrid, and he revitalized his game even more inside there. So the positive that I'm bringing from this is that we can see that last year he's showing the adaptability. Last year was his best year ever from a scoring point of view. 31 games, 10 goals in the league. He had 12 goals overall from 42 games. This year, he's played 46 games, 11 goals. While he's not a starter for this team, he definitely offers something, and he now is beginning to learn to offer it as that second striker when Real Madrid need to change formation. He still does play out in the wing from time to time, but the Marcus Asensio, when he burst onto the scene, is not the same Marcus Asensio playing on the wing now. But it's okay because his skill set hasn't changed. He's changed his ability to play, to be able to play more towards the creative role of playing infield and more of an inverted 10 or even that support striker an awful lot more. And that's why the positive I'm bringing from this is that's what Villa need. Villa don't need, if he signs for Aston Villa, Villa don't need him to be that out-and-out winger, because I think they're going to bring in an out-and-out winger as well. And I think the statistics over the last 365 days back that up. So if you think about it, where does Marcus Asensio fit in with this Aston Villa team? He fits in that Bailey Buendia role beside Ollie Watkins. Don't think that's not a hot take. I don't think. If it is, well then I don't know what rock people have been living under, but that's not a hot take. But that's where I would imagine he would play. I think Premier League will suit him. He's been rumored, even as short as last year, he was rumored as coming in to be a Liverpool player. Liverpool were very, very heavily interested in him. That all cooled. I think that they will cool on him as well. One of the things that I think that might trip up Aston Villa with regards to this transfer, and by no means do I think that this is a definite transfer or anything like that. I would probably only give it 40%, to be honest with you, at best with regards to this transfer. That's a chance of happening. It's a free transfer, so there's going to have to be. It's going to come down to a financial package as well as a project package as well. Now, Aston Villa will be able to offer Very, very, very lucrative terms, I think, on both the project and on the financial package. And to be honest with you, I hope they do, because he's a marquee player, and he's a player that is in his prime at 27 years of age, and he's a player that has, over the last 2 years, has had his two best years from goal scoring point of view, with this transition of change of position as well. Playing more from that right hand side, playing a bit more infield from that right hand side, both last year and this year, but more inverted, I think, in his positioning as well. So if you're thinking about the out and out wingers, what I'm saying here, that latent pace, he's not that guy anymore. I don't think it's a negative. I'm not saying that he's injury prone. I'm not saying that the injuries haven't finished. It's not like a Coutinho thing whereby Coutinho couldn't wriggle away from people. This guy absolutely still can, and his passing range is fantastic. But let's look at some statistics, and let's take a look at him as well. Zach Whelan says not going to happen. He also says Asensio not coming to Villa. It's fine. Still talk about him, buddy. Free speech and all that. So here are some statistics, and I think the biggest thing that jumps out here on the page is looking at the spider graph from a point of view of industry, of effort, and of what this guy does on the field. From an output point of view, he absolutely blows all of our current incumbents out of the picture. He is more productive in less time than Pedro Gonçalves as well, from Sporting Lisbon. Damn it, I did it again. Sporting Club de Portugal. That I've done a piece on previously, and I was going to overlay what Pedro Gonçalves numbers were as well on this, but I didn't think it was beneficial, considering that I wanted to put him up against the incumbents that are here. But just looking here, the amount of shots he takes per 90, shots on target, shot creating actions, goal creating actions, successful dribbles, everything is far and away better than what we currently have. Even the amount of times he's been dispossessed, we can see there the red line is for Leon Bailey there, the amount of times Leon Bailey is dispossessed and all that. And we can see here that Marcus Asensio is rarely dispossessed, 0.88 times per game, which puts him in the top 92 percentile in Europe, which is very good. So he's very economical with the ball, and that's where I want to start with here. Defensively, you're not going to get a huge pile out of him. You're not going to get a huge pile out of him. He's not going to be that person who's going to run back and forth and be box to box. He's just not. He wasn't that as a winger. He's not going to be that as a second striker or an attacking midfielder. Where you're going to see the real production from him is he can be a workhorse in the ability to make things happen at the top of the field. He can hold his position in that kind of second striker role and draw people towards him, and he's comfortable taking on tackles. He's comfortable evading tackles. He's comfortable in dribbling away. He dribbles out of trouble, doesn't dribble to progress the ball forward that much, but when he does dribble, he gets away from his man. So he's very much in that mold of a Real Madrid type player, or I suppose a Spanish type of player, maybe like if Cesc Fabregas type of player, whereby he moved quickly over a short distance, so that he could get out of trouble, pay that little pass, and then be there to maybe receive another wall pass or another 1-2 off that guy again. And we can see that there. His successful dribble rate, 58.1%. Progressive passes, 4.2 progressive passes per game. But one of the big numbers that I want to show there puts him up in the 88th percentile as well. It just shows his comfortability. His passes received, 46.69. It's an overlooked statistic, I think, for me, because how comfortable are people giving him the ball? And I know the rebuttal to this with a guy playing for Real Madrid is that, yeah, well, they're going to own the ball in 90% of games that they play. But if they're going to own the ball in 90% of games that they play, and they're giving it to him, as opposed to giving it to somebody that they feel is more progressive or somebody they may feel is more creative, well, then that's a positive. And considering this guy is coming off the bench more often than not, and they're still comfortable giving him the ball 46.69 times per game, I think that's fantastic as well. Pass completion rate, one of the biggest reasons that we have, or one of the biggest reasons that people have been kind of given out about Buendia recently, and we've given out about Coutinho in the past, and specifically Leon Bailey as well, has been not being able to retain the ball. The retention of possession, their movement to the ball in the attacking third has been wasteful at times. This guy has an 82.8% passing percentage, puts him up in the 92nd percentile. Villa needs something like that. They need a reliable passer up there. We've got reliable passers further back the field. We've got a Douglas Luiz who's a reliable passer. We've got a Boubacar Kamara when he comes in back in as a reliable passer. They're great in that double pivot role or playing as those two central midfielders when we played a narrow four. They're great and that's fantastic, and we need those for that box type midfield that Villa try to play, and that deep lying midfielder roles that Emery needs. But we're now seeing that when we're progressing the ball forward, if we don't get it forward fast enough, we don't have that person who can unlock a door. We don't have that bit of magic, that threaded through pass ball. And we don't have speed either. You know, we are lacking speed slightly, but until we bring in speed as well, we need that person that plays at the diamond, that almost Bergkamp-esque type player that can take the ball, doesn't look like he's being very, very expending too much effort, but all of a sudden slide a weighted ball through to a striker or something like that. And that is something that Asensio will bring to the table for sure. I'm certain of it. So his shooting statistics, he can score goals himself. He can. He's very adept at that as well. As I said, he scored 23 goals in his last 2 years so far, and that equates to 88 games, 22 goals in 88 games, coming off the bench of 1 in 4 for a kind of a support striker. I'll take that any day of the week. If he was to play playing for Aston Villa, he'd have 11 goals, which would put him as, I would imagine, that's going to be our second highest score. So having two kind of strikers that would be scoring over 10 goals would be absolutely brilliant within this team, considering how many goals that we spread around the team as well. And that is something we need to do, is up our scoring rate while keeping our goals conceded down. And Unai Emery has kept our goals conceded down. We now need to start scoring more goals at the other end. And by just looking at this radial graph, you'll see that it is a positive. As I said, will he join Aston Villa? I think there's massive fish going to be circling for him. I think there's teams that will be circling for him. I think Liverpool. I spoke to a Liverpool podcast about him last night. They said that it seems as if their interest has cooled in him. I don't know why, because I would imagine that he would come in and fit in there. Maybe they feel that their hand has been bitten with Thiago. Maybe they feel their hand has been bitten with Arthur Melo, who hasn't played at all due to injury, and maybe they don't want to dip into that 26, 27, 28-year-old Spanish market anymore. I don't know. You know, sometimes teams can get kind of a mental block with regards to players and regards to certain players from certain leagues and so on that just somehow continually don't work within their system. This podcast thought that Thiago was a good player, just couldn't stay on the field, and I think that's a fair assessment of him as well. And they also felt that he was a bit ineffectual with the ball. Maybe they felt that maybe the system that the Klopp is going to run doesn't lead itself to Asensio. I don't know, but there will be big teams that will be looking for him. I think AC Milan are going to be highly interested in this guy. Come in and play for them as well. So Villa are going to have a fight in their hands, big fight in their hands. But if this is the caliber of player that Villa end up bringing into the club under Unai Emery, under Matteo Almani, under Chris Heck, under Johan Lange, under Christian Purslow, this new structure that we're going to see. This is the caliber of player that we're going to get linked to it and then see fruition from those links, which, let's face it, we're going to be linked with 1,000 players between now and the end of the transfer window. We'll probably sign 5, but we're going to talk about every single one of them. And because it's interesting, once again, to see what types of players are being linked to it, because some links are true and some links are linked are leaked from the club, and that's fine. And you can determine what I'm trying to do here is, as I say, always trying to determine a type of player that Aston Villa want. And this type of player is somebody that I strongly feel will be beneficial for the way Emery plays. That extra nous and that creativity up top, I think, is something that we need. We have a lot of endeavour in this team. We have a lot of hard workers in this team. We need that's not to say that Asensio isn't a hard worker, but we need somebody who's got cool and calm and collected at the top end of the pitch to be able to make those passes that make us all go, oof, that's brilliant, you know, because we don't have an awful lot of those. We have them sparingly throughout the team, don't get me wrong, we do, but this guy does it at a level for Real Madrid, and he does it coming off the bench as well. So he would be a welcome addition, I think, to the team as well. But the context being that, as I say, I think there will be a lot of fish circling for this guy here. That brings us up to 20 minutes, guys. I thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Also, sorry for not getting to your comments. I have a different kind of a layout here because I'm on a semi how would I put it, a bit of a rudimentary system here. I'm still not back in my house yet. The building work is still going on. So not only do I have a new young fella, I also have half a house at the moment. So a lot going on here. But we will be back probably later on, myself and Paddy, with a preview show for Spurs at the weekend. 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock. Maybe 10 o'clock, depending on what time I can get to podcast. But we will be back with a Spurs preview show tonight. Let me know what you think of Asensio. I'm sorry, I can't see an awful lot of the comments here. I can only see one or two that pop up here just with my system. So I'll have that rectified for the preview show tonight. But if you did enjoy that, please give it a thumbs up and please give us a subscription if you're not already signed up as well. But appreciate absolutely every single one of you once again. Thank you so much for all your congratulations and all your nice messages. I really appreciate it, every single one of them. And it just goes to show what a great community we have here with regards to the podcast. But we'll be back later on again. And who knows, we might be linked with more players and we might be able to talk about them as well. But until then, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy. And all that's left to say is up the Villa.